Hello and welcome to this tutorial on ordered pairs and functions. By the end of this lesson, you will know what an ordered pair is and how it's graphed in the XY plane. Also, you'll be able to identify, given a group of ordered pairs, whether they make a function and what a function is. But before we get into ordered pairs, functions, and the XY plane, let's look at a refresher of the number line. So as a refresher, this is the number line. You see the arrows on the end. We see negative numbers, negative integers, positive integers, and 0 in the middle. The arrows on the end indicate that this number line doesn't necessarily stop at negative 10 or positive 10. It goes in either of those directions to negative infinity to the left, positive infinity to the right if need be. It includes all real numbers, not just the numbers listed there. It includes any numbers in between all of these whole numbers listed here. And of course, I could pick any number along this number line and just plug it in. If I wanted to find 8, that's 8 there. If I want to find 0, that's 0, negative 6, and so on. So you've heard of 3D. Well, the number line is 1D. That's one dimension. It just goes left to right, so that's one dimension. And as we know, nothing really exists in one dimension. We just use a number line as a teaching illustration. That brings us to the next thing, 2D. And that's another thing that we use, once again, for a teaching illustration, because we live in a 3D world. That means we have length, width, and height. You can touch it. It has some height. But in this XY plane is what we call it. You only have length and width, no height. Way down the line, you'll run into something called the XYZ plane. That's a 3D. And that's a real world demonstration. This XY plane is created by crossing two number lines together. If you can envision a surface of a table, you take one number line and we call this X. We're only going in one direction. But if we all of a sudden put another number line across it, now we have Y. And so that covers the whole table. So just like with the number line, we have 0 in the middle, but here we have 0 in the middle of both of them. We go out 1 to the left, 2, negative 1, 2, and so on. You can, and once again, it goes on to infinity in the Y direction, plus minus, and to the X plus minus, it goes into infinity. So this is negative X here, negative Y here. And in the middle, we see the 0. We call that the origin. That's where both lines meet. They both meet at 0 for each line. And so my ordered pair has two dimensions, X and Y. So we need both of these to plot on this XY plane. On a number line, we could use, say, X. That's just one number. It's never said X, but it's just one number. But on XY plane, it has two dimensions, so it has length and width. So we could take a number 0, 1. Its X value is 0. Its Y value is 1. We could plot it using both of those coordinates. X here is 0, and Y of 1 is here. So it lands right on the Y-axis, we call it, and that's the point 0, 1. And so we label it 0, 1. So let's look at an example. What if you were asked to graph the ordered pairs listed here? So we did the 0, 1 actually, so we're already ahead of the game. We got that one. Now, we'll just go out. First number is X, and the second one's Y. You do this several times, and you should be able to get a grasp on it. The only thing I've seen students struggle with is the coordinating part for some reason. So we go out to negative 2 and we go up 1 because that's our Y. Y is going to be at 1. So that's our first ordered pair, negative 2, 1. Second one, negative 3, negative 5, negative 3, negative 5. I'm going to change that. I don't have a 6. I'm going to change this out. Next one, that's not going to be 5, 6 because there's no 6 on here. Well, let's get 4, negative 1. So we go out right here, 4, down to negative 1. That's the point 4, negative 1. We go 5, 6. Let's skip that one. We have 1 at the origin here, 0, 0. Got to make that one bigger. And then, of course, we have 0, 1. So instead of 5, 6, well, what if we said that was just 5, 4? Doesn't matter. We go out 5 to the X, up 4. And so that point will be here. And if we want, we could label them all. 5, 4, 4, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 3, negative 5, negative 3, negative 5 here, negative 2, 1, And so you get the picture. So feel free to pause the video and try this example, or follow along with me while I plot them. I got a negative 3, 2, that's here, 3, 0, out to 3 here, and 0 stays right here. So that might be a tricky one. 0, 5, x is 0 here, negative 5 down here right on the axis. So when one of them is 0, you'll see it's on this xy axis, right on the line. And I have 5, 5. So I'm coming out here x to 5, and I go up 5 right here. And 4, 4 out here on 4x, 4y, and 4, 5 here. The x value is also often referred to as the domain. Here, the y value, the range. With domain and range, you can consider the domain as your starting point and the range as the end point. Because these terms, domain and range, might be a little bit confusing, but x is where you start and you end at y. So that brings us to the definition of a function. And we usually work in terms of one-to-one functions. A one-to-one function is a set of ordered pairs where for every x value there is only one y value. If that condition is not satisfied, then it's not considered a one-to-one function. So there's a great way to test whether a function is one-to-one or not. There's something called a vertical line test. That is, a vertical line must be able to pass through any point on the graph, that is, any ordered pair, and not touch more than one point. So if we take a look at the previous example we had here, I have these 5 ordered pairs, these 5 points. If I ran a vertical line on this grid anywhere, it wouldn't touch any of those any more than one point. There's only one point on each one of these vertical lines here, if you see. So that means that these ordered pairs represent a function. Whereas in the other example, that's not the case, because if you see this line, this 4th line here, if I try to run a vertical line through this point, it hits it twice. So it fails the vertical line test, which means that for this x value, the value of x equals 4, it has 2 y values. So that's basically what it means to be one-to-one or not. And the best way to think of why a function cannot be have 2 y values is to think of your keyboard, for example. If I plug in any number on the keyboard, say I punch in a number 1, I can't have all kinds of values showing up for that number 1. I need to see that number 1 show up. So that's an idea of what a one-to-one function, why it needs to be as it is. So sometimes ordered pairs can be listed in the following manner: an XY table. And sometimes you have to write these up yourself. We'll get into that in other lessons. But the XY, I may have negative 4, 3, negative 2, 0, 1, 2, which is y value 1, 5, 0, 1. So this is the x value and the y value. If we wanted to plot these, I just take this as the x value and the y value. So I go negative 4 out here, up 3, that's my first one. Negative 2 here, up 1, second value. 0, 0, we know that's right here in the middle. 1, 5, out to the right, 1, up 5, fourth value. And 2 to the right, up 1, my fifth value. Just as we did with the other examples. So this would be a good place to pause the video and try to plot these examples yourself. We have 4, 3, 5, 1, 0, 0, 5, 1, 4, negative 3. Okay, or you can follow along with me while I solve it. I have the point 4, negative 3, so I'm looking at my x going to the right 4, down negative 3. That's where it coordinates. Start at 3 here, up 4, 5, 1 here, x of 1, y of 5 here, and 0, 0. So that's an introduction to ordered pairs and one-to-one functions. We built from there. This is a foundation of graphs of lines and all kinds of other figures. So let's recap. When it comes to ordered pairs and functions, I did a quick review of the number line. In order to understand a two-dimensional grid, we have to understand this one-dimensional grid, which is a number line. If we overlap cross two one-dimensional grids, we get this two-dimensional XY plane. We found that each value in the XY plane has an X and a Y coordinate. And so in order to plot these values, we need to have it in X and Y, whereas on the number line it just had one value. So we plotted these values here, which led us to the definition of a function. A one-to-one function is a set of ordered pairs where for every X value there exists only one Y value. Noting that a simple vertical line test is the quickest and easy way to see if a function is one-to-one. And if these values are plotted on a graph, you draw a line between them. You don't even have to put a vertical line. You can just look visually. If the line is straight up and down at any point, then the vertical line test will fail. And lastly, we looked at coordinate points in the XY table, and we plotted those. This has been an introduction to ordered pairs and functions. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, support.